I'm Luca Giliberti, contributing writer for Gold Derby, and I'm joined today by Jenna Ortega, who stars as Vada in The Fallout. So Jenna, I know that The Fallout actually marked the first time that you had led a film. So to start things off, could you talk about the experience and responsibility of being first on the call sheet like that?
Yeah, I had only experienced that with television before, which honestly, film might be a lot easier considering, television, you do something for 8, 10 months and yeah, that gets a bit tiring. But on a film, I didn't perceive it too differently as being any other number on the call sheet. If anything, it's something I do understand is that number one does set the tone on set in terms of, you work with people sometimes who hold the title of number one and aren't so nice and kind of disrupts the flow and environment on set. And I really wanted to make sure that that wasn't the case on The Fallout. And I don't know, any job that I want to do, I just want to be kind, respectful, and do my job. So the weight of number one wasn't really necessarily so much in place on set. I feel like the weight was more in performance and what I was going to do to carry this story that is incredibly timely and sensitive.
Absolutely. And you've talked about how you had never before spent so much time with a character and gotten to explore and convey such a wide range of emotions. So given that, how did your preparation process for playing Vada differ from prior experiences?
It didn't differ too much, honestly. I don't obviously it depends on the character, but I don't like to rehearse things too much because then it becomes too robotic or I have too many thoughts in my head. I never want to plan what I'm going to do. And also, you can work as hard as you want on a scene, but a lot of it is reliant on who you're acting with or against, because it's like as soon as you build that connection and build that rapport, things start to make a lot more sense. Or there's often times where you prep something and you go into it and it's nothing like what you prepped, which is totally fine as well. But for The Fallout, same thing. I didn't go over too much. I feel like Megan Park, the writer, had written Vada so perfectly that I kind of already understood that person before I went into it, which is so nice because it's like my job is already done for me. I know that person. I know what my job is as an actor, what I need to provide. But there was like a scene or two that I would randomly practice. I had a lot of months of like just sitting around researching the topic and doing whatever, but every once in a while I would break into one of the therapy scenes that I had. The last one that I have towards the end of the film, I would just run that monologue and make sure I got it and make sure I knew it and felt it. And also there was another scene that I think also the stall scene as well. Sometimes I would just go over when I could.
Right, and I was very surprised to hear that the therapy scenes with Shailene Woodley were actually filmed basically at the beginning of production because, they very much bookend Vada's emotional journey. But in hindsight, how helpful would you say it was to have to dive headfirst into your character like that?
Incredibly helpful. It was day 2 that we were doing that.
Really?
It was insane. Yeah, and then along with someone like Shailene Woodley, who I've always had incredible respect for, it was really, really intimidating. But like you said, it was so nice to already be there, especially considering we didn't shoot the stall scene until it was our second to last day or last day. It was so it's weird because we were kind of talking about this thing without never really addressing it until the end, which is kind of metaphor. It kind of goes along with our film, or at least Vada. But yeah, it's incredibly helpful because as soon as I knew that I could have that conversation and Vada was ready for that conversation, I knew that I could unwind from there.
And, let's actually talk about that first therapy session, because what really struck me is that Vada, in a way, equates emotions with drama and indirectly asks, are emotions really productive, which Shailene's character picks up on immediately. Where do you think that mindset comes from?
That mindset, I mean, I don't want to say it's denial because she's not denying that it's happening, but I also think that when people are someone like Vada who's so insecure or so in her head or already feels, oh, I'm awkward, oh, I'm this, oh, I'm that, I feel like Vada is somebody who feels like anything that she does is a burden, and I don't think that what happens to her helps. So she feels like she's the last one to have an opinion on something. She didn't lose someone directly like Quentin did. She didn't, so it's like there's all these excuses that you make up in your head as to why you don't deserve something or why you don't get something. And I think that that's where Vada is coming from when she doesn't want to address her issues, she just doesn't want to make a big deal. She doesn't want to draw attention to herself.
That's very interesting. It's also incredibly relatable. And, we'll talk about the later therapy session a bit later, but I would like to track some of the developments that inform what she's able to convey in that later session, starting with her friendship with Mia that forms as a result of this school shooting. What do you think that friendship, or Mia herself, provides Vada with that she maybe has not had in her life before, if that makes sense?
Um, hmm. Well, it's funny. I think trying to think, because I do want to say I don't think that Vada's ever related to somebody harder. I know that she has her best friend Nick. I know that they're great, but they're also very different people, and that's kind of the wonderful thing about them is whenever they react, it just the most outlandish things come out of their mouth because it's kind of they're kind of like a funny pairing. But Mia, I think, is somebody who also a young woman, was there, saw everything that happened. They have a lot more in common than you would initially think. And again, power of social media, so great at distracting people from the truth.
Yeah.
Sometimes leading people to it, but for the sake of this conversation, I really think that Vada too is somebody who, as close as she gets to people, she never really feels like she's fully herself sometimes. And I think that Mia kind of allows her that, or Mia allows her to explore a certain side of herself without being judged. When Vada is so tired and so lost and is willing to do anything to feel any sort of normalcy again, Mia is kind of that outlet for expression and self-discovery, I think.
Yeah, I really love that friendship. And I especially love that scene, right before the shooting, actually, when Vada tells Mia that she doesn't even need to wear makeup. I don't know why, but that just struck me immediately. Talk about creating that chemistry with Maddie Ziegler, who plays Mia, and how improv found its way into some of your scenes.
Yeah, well, Maddie is just so lovely. She's like easily one of my favorite people on this planet. So kind and we didn't have much time to, the pandemic was happening, so people were terrified, and we hung out once, just because we felt it was necessary. There has to be some sort of interaction between us before we start, to start our scenes. And I remember we sat and we talked for 12 hours. Our parents were both calling us, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" Because nobody was. And I think that literally just getting to know Maddie to that extent, and then also being vulnerable with someone so instantly, really helped our characters later on. And in terms of improvisation, I mean, Megan Park is wonderful because she gave us such a great basis for a script or storyline. We kind of already knew where we were going. She's definitely an actor's director. She let us play. She was like, ultimately, you guys are teenagers. You know these people better than I do. That's why I cast you, sort of thing. And I'm here to guide you. And eventually, we just have to get back to the main point. So it was just, I think because Veda was so awkward, I know for me, improv wise, I just kind of wanted to say, it helps to make things, sorry, I'm going to backtrack on that. Improvising helps to make things a little bit looser, a bit more natural. And it's because of the style of this film, because it's a lot more grounded and there's a lot more silence than you would anticipate. I really wanted to make sure that when we did have more lively moments, it was actually awkward and there was kind of stutter. Improv can be that way sometimes. It also depended on the scene too. I know there's certain scenes that it kind of helps me to stay in it rather than leave it. So there's a scene where, we're drunk in a parking lot and I'm messing with Maddie in between takes, pushing her around and whispering things in her ear, and she's whispering things in mine, and they're saying, "Oh, film him again, film again, film him again." And there's a scene where we're rolling a joint and it's 7 minutes. Megan wanted to put the full thing in there because it's 7 minutes of Maddie and I just saying whatever we want. Yeah, that was always Megan's favorite part. So she would let me do these fun run takes where I would just say and do whatever, and those were the ones that she ended up using.
Oh, I absolutely love that, and really fits to the character, doesn't it? I like that a lot of those scenes then made it into the movie. And then there's Veda's relationship with her family and with her sister Amelia in particular. I want to talk about that heart to heart between the two sisters in bed, because it really is as beautiful as it is devastating, if I may say. What do you think we learn about Veda from her sister's observations / perspective in that scene?
It's weird when you spend I think, I mean, it goes with anyone. When you spend so much time with yourself, or you're so focused on whatever it is that you're going in your life, you're not understanding other areas of your life that you're neglecting. And I think that from the audience perspective, and I may be wrong when I say this, but you're following Vada along this whole journey, and you see Amelia here and there, but you don't realize the negative side of things. You see them have that sweet period conversation, and then from then on, it's just negativity and go away, go away, go away. And people think, oh, typical sister, but that was never Vada and Amelia. They were always really close. They always really loved each other. And I think that's kind of a newsflash with an audience where you kind of been indulging somebody's self-destructive phase and endeavors. And it's another moment of reality where it's, damn, I can't believe that I let something like this slip. And that's exactly what Vada is feeling. So that's actually one of my favorite scenes, just because it blindsides everyone, I think. And it's a really important conversation. And it's also, I think, part of the first time where Vada realized something needs to change.
Exactly.
No.
Yeah, that would have been my next question, because to what extent do you think listening to her sister say, you're never home, you never talk, and then to conclude based on that Vada is mad at her, to what extent do you think that changes how Vada approaches things going forward?
Yeah, well, considering Amelia is her favorite person, I have a little sister, and same thing. It's the protective love. It's like, I feel like I would sacrifice myself for her before my brain even had time to process, so I think that Vada is kind of coming from that same point. And that's the first time that somebody really confronts her like that, but not coming from a place of frustration, just pure confusion and a state of upset. And I think that is really triggering for Vada. And I think that for anybody who has a little sibling or sister that they would care about would understand that that's not going to slide. Vada always wants to be there for Amelia, and she's been doing the opposite.
Absolutely, I can relate in that matter. And then we get a great scene between Vada and her father toward the end of the film, in which she's very honest about feeling empty. But then there is that moment of relief when she just unleashes, or the both of them unleash some of those buried emotions in form of shouting. How is it for you, as someone who had internalized all those emotions, to have this cathartic release?
It was nice. I mean, I love to shout. I love to, and it's funny because John Ortiz, who plays my father in the film, that was the second time he's played my dad. So it's kind of weird because I have these memories of him when I was, 10 years old. So it's kind of nice too when you're sitting there having this conversation with someone, and you can kind of pull from that and draw from that. Oh, remember the times we have, how close we've been, what our progress has been as father and daughter, and then to shout. And that's something I think for anybody, especially, you're working on a set like that where, I mean, it was a really dark, heavy time, considering the subject matter and all that we were doing. I think it was just something that I kind of needed, honestly. But it also was nice because it was a bit awkward and a bit, hesitant and like weird to do when you have a bunch of, 50-year-old men holding booms and watching you and things like that. So I really enjoyed filming that scene. It felt good. And yeah, anytime I get to work with John is a pleasure.
Oh, that's nice. I think we would all do better if we did something like that in real sometimes, to just, shout and just, express exactly what we're feeling. I thought that was really, really a great scene. And this is where I'd actually like to bring in the last therapy session, because even though Vada needs a little bit of a push from Shailene's character to explain how she feels, she gets there. Why do you think it is that she can get to a point where she is in touch with her emotions and can honestly say one guy with a gun can F up so many lives in 6 minutes?
I don't know. It's weird. We kind of did a lot of versions of that scene too, and we did scenes where I just kind of versions where I just kind of release and cry and do the whole. And then I think Megan ended up liking the ones where Vada's holding back a little bit more. Which is what I mean, even in that scene, it starts off with, Shailene's character asking her, how is she feeling? And her saying, I don't know, because she still doesn't want to address it. I think it's just ultimately a moment of weakness and exhaustion, keeping that up for, I think, there's so many times where you open up to somebody and you're not entirely sure why you do. And you can't tell if you regret it or not. it's entirely like to the person, and it's just kind of awkward. I think that's kind of one of those moments, and I think that again, like the Amelia scene is a direct, connection to that. This is the scene that she had with her father. It's just, I think that people had been cracking away at her for so long that it was just kind of, well, you know what, here, take it. Like, this is what it'll be. And for some reason, she was feeling strangely comfortable that day. But it is how she was feeling, and it's the first time that Veda ever expressed herself vocally on the subject like that, and it's an incredibly important scene, and I think was relief, but it's kind of frustrating because she also wouldn't allow herself to experience it fully. She cut herself off and stopped. So I think it's also a good way to kind of start to put the end of the story together, just because there's so much more that's still to go, and you never give the audience the satisfaction of seeing what that is.
Absolutely. And that is a perfect segue to my next question, because, I actually watched this film recently. And so when that final scene comes and Veda gets that notification on her phone, it just put a knot in my stomach for obvious reasons. What does this scene say about the end of Veda's journey in this film, and how was it filming it?
It doesn't end. It does not end. And it's so frustrating, especially, I mean, people have this outrage online and freak out, thoughts and prayers, and then a week later it's forgotten. 2 weeks later, nobody cares anymore. 2 weeks later, it's the next one. It was really, really important. I think that was also one of my more favorite parts of the script, just because Megan realized that you couldn't give people a happy ending with this one, because until somebody enforces change or does something to stop this awful epidemic that we have going on in our country, it never will end, and people like Veda will always exist and are still existing today. And well, it's okay, it's a movie, that gave me chills, that made me emotional. You get to forget about it, and you get to go on with your life, where a lot of people don't. People like Veda are carrying that with them for the rest of their lives. That something like that, it completely alters the state of someone's existence and personality, the way they interact with people from now on, the way they carry themselves from now on. It will never be the same. And I don't know, it really, really upsets me. And even thinking about it and hearing about things that are happening today, it's so frustrating and so exhausting that I don't know. I'm really, really glad that the script ended that way. It couldn't have ended any other way, I don't think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we don't deserve, or there can't be a release when there isn't that release in real life. So I think that it's a perfect moment for the film to end, and it is quite the film. Like I said, it's a beautiful film. But it's also incredibly tragic for obvious reasons. So Jenna, thank you so much for taking the time today to talk about it. It was a real pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Likewise.